For over a decade, he said nothing, not a word. As headlines screamed betrayal, as the world chose sides, Prince William remained silent. But that silence just broke, and what spilled out was far from forgiveness. In an unprecedented confession, William reveals the full weight of his heartbreak and what finally convinced him that trust once sacred was now beyond repair. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. And as the world absorbs the shock of his admission, the truth is that this fracture did not erupt overnight. It simmered, tightened, and darkened over years, tearing through the very fabric of brotherhood until William could no longer hold back, the emotional gravity crushing him from within. The global reaction was immediate. Newsrooms in London froze mid-broadcast, social media detonated in real time, and palace staff quietly acknowledged they had expected tension, but never this level of raw exposure. William's decision to speak was not rehearsed or polished. It was unfiltered in a way the monarchy avoids at all costs. His voice carried the weight of years spent trying to preserve an image of unity, even as he felt that unity dissolving beneath him with every controversy, every headline, every moment Harry stepped further from the family they once shielded together. He spoke of a moment just 1 minute ago. He phrased it when something finally snapped. He didn't describe it in detail, only hinted at an unseen breaking point, a private message or revelation that made him realize the distance was no longer emotional. It was permanent. The world will debate endlessly what that moment truly was, but the exhaustion in his tone made one thing painfully clear. William had reached the end of defending what could no longer be hidden. The years of suppressed tension that followed Harry's explosive moves, interviews, memoirs, allegations, and the relentless media warfare had hollowed out whatever fragile trust remained. William admitted he kept hoping for a pause, for Harry to step back from the storms he unleashed, but each time he extended patience, the next wave hit harder than the last. And then came the line that shook even seasoned royal commentators: "There's no going back now." The simplicity of the phrase made it devastating. It was not spoken in anger, but resignation and acknowledgement that the bond Diana once believed would anchor her sons through the darkest tides had now been irrevocably severed. What startled insiders even more was the timing. According to palace whispers, Camilla and Charles were informed only minutes before William stepped forward, suggesting this was not a strategic move but an emotional necessity. One source described the atmosphere inside Clarence's house as stunned stillness, as though the monarchy itself had been caught off guard by the heir's decision to expose a wound so deep, so personal, and so politically dangerous. Yet William did not offer closure. Instead, he opened a door, a dark, winding corridor into years of hidden pain, private confrontations, and the slow erosion of a bond he once trusted with his entire being. His confession was not the end of a story, it was the beginning of an unraveling. But what pushed William past the edge of loyalty and blood? To understand the fracture, we must return to where this royal unraveling truly began, behind closed doors at Kensington Palace. They were Diana's sons, unbreakable, we thought, but her memory became a battlefield. What began as shared grief turned into rivalry over legacy, over identity, and over who she would have truly wanted to carry her light. William says the betrayal didn't begin with Meghan, it began with something far more sacred. And beneath that sacredness lay a wound few ever saw coming. In the early years after Diana's death, the brothers clung to her memory as the only anchor they had left, but as time passed, that anchor began to split. Her personal belongings, letters, cherished jewelry, even sections of her private diaries became not just mementos of a lost mother, but bargaining chips in a silent power struggle. The decision to divide her possessions had once seemed fair, but fair turned bitter when whispers emerged that Harry had pushed for items long considered earmarked for William, or for the monarchy itself. Among those items was a sapphire brooch Diana had worn in private, reportedly promised to William for Catherine, but it never made it to Kensington. Instead, sources say it vanished from the official list, later seen on Meghan during a private dinner in the US, a gesture William privately labelled provocative. The tension sharpened when Harry began, invoking Diana's name in public speeches. At first it seemed like tribute, but as his tone grew more confrontational toward the institution, William felt the messaging had been twisted. He used her memory as a weapon, William confided to aides, referencing how Harry framed their mother's legacy in a way that cast the monarchy, and by extension, William as cold and complicit. The emotional toll wasn't just about words, it was about identity. Who was the true heir to Diana's moral mission? The future king or the rebel prince? Behind palace doors, that question erupted into arguments few will ever forget. A leaked Kensington memo detailed a confrontation where William accused Harry of reinterpreting her ghost for political convenience. Harry fired back, insisting Diana would have supported independence from the crown's archaic restraints. But William's fury wasn't just about philosophical differences, it was about memory, respect, and the fear that Harry was rewriting history in real time. In one chilling exchange, William reportedly slammed a framed photo of their mother face down, saying, "You've made her a cause. She was our mother, not a movement." The emotional rupture became irreparable when voices from Diana's past began to weigh in. Former aides and confidants, once silent, broke rank. Some privately confirmed that Diana had, in her final months, expressed hope that William would uphold the crown, while Harry pursued freedom with restraint. The revelations were never officially acknowledged, but they echoed through Windsor like thunder. Still, even with that pain, William kept silent. He bore the narrative quietly until now. Because while Diana's legacy tore at the foundation, what came next burned through it entirely. But if the legacy of their mother opened old wounds, what came next would ignite an inferno, one that began not in Britain, but thousands of miles away. It wasn't just a move, it was an escape. When Harry and Meghan fled to California, they didn't just leave a country, they left a kingdom. And William, blindsided, was left wondering, was this a cry for freedom or the first chess move in a dangerous game? For William, the pain wasn't just about geography. It was about betrayal masquerading as independence. The sudden exit from royal duties sent shockwaves through the monarchy, but none hit harder than the blow William felt in private. According to close aides, he had no forewarning, not from Harry, not from the palace press office, not even through the tightly monitored channels of family communication. The moment he found out wasn't during a family discussion or formal letter, it was during a staff briefing. A junior aide at Kensington Palace had been forwarded a link from across the Atlantic, an early draft of the Sussex's official departure statement. William read it on a Zoom call with stunned silence, his face betraying not anger but disbelief. The days that followed were chaos cloaked in quiet. Behind closed doors, leaked WhatsApp transcripts and internal Kensington emails described William's reaction as volcanic. One insider said he walked the halls for hours, refusing press updates, speaking only to a handful of senior advisors. To the public, he was composed. Behind the scenes, he was devastated, not because Harry had chosen a new life, but because he hadn't chosen to tell him. And beneath that silence simmered a deeper question, one that William later put into words with haunting precision. He left the crown behind, but what else did he leave? The implication was chilling. Had Harry abandoned not just duty, but family, loyalty, legacy? The role of Meghan in the move became another thread of inner torment for William. He had once welcomed her with sincerity. As tensions mounted, that welcome had awed into suspicion. William began to question whether Meghan's protective instincts were evolving into something far more strategic. Her insistence on privacy, her growing distrust of palace courtiers, and her decision to handle media independently all clashed violently with the monarchy's structure. William saw a pattern, and to him it wasn't about protection, it was about positioning. Every public step the couple took seemed to be a counter to the crown, and each move came without warning. In the shadows of that confusion, William had fought hard privately to preserve Harry's security funding. He feared the fallout, the vulnerability, and the danger Harry might face without royal protection. But that gesture too was met with silence. No acknowledgement, no gratitude, just another widening crack in the foundation. The pain was no longer theoretical, it was practical. William's inner circle had spent months preparing him to shoulder more royal burden, to guide the monarchy into a modern age. And yet, as he tried to hold the center, his own brother had, in his words, walked off the board. What had once been a partnership two brothers aligned for the crown's future had dissolved into an emotional chess match. But the most destabilizing move wasn't the departure. It was what came after. But distance wasn't the worst part. It was what Harry began saying from across the ocean, with cameras rolling and royal secrets unraveling. Millions watched, but only one man broke inside. William sat in silence as his brother dropped bombshell after bombshell, allegations, accusations, and insinuations that shook the monarchy. But while Harry spoke to the world, William spoke to no one until now. The Oprah interview was not just a media moment, it was a knife through tradition, unity, and the fragile hope that the family's wounds might still heal. For William, every word aired on T broadcast was another brick crumbling from the wall of trust he had spent years trying to reinforce. Aides closest to him say they had never seen him so hollowed out, so visibly stunned. One described him as frozen but burning, unable to look away yet unable to process what was happening. And when the final credits rolled and the world gasped, William simply stood, walked into his private quarters and shut the door for hours. Inside Buckingham and Kensington, chaos reigned. Phones buzzed relentlessly. Statements were drafted, redrafted, and finally watered down to the palace's now infamous recollections may vary. But behind that careful phrasing was fury, not just from courtiers, but from the heir himself. He felt blindsided, vilified, and deeply betrayed not because Harry spoke out, but because he did it without once picking up the phone. In the days before the interview, a courier had hand-delivered a letter from Harry, marked personal. William never opened it. A senior source revealed he simply held it in his hands, paused, and then let it fall to the floor. The symbolism was devastating. That envelope may as well have contained the final splinter of their relationship, because by the time the interview aired, William had already braced for impact, but nothing could prepare him for the emotional aftermath. That was the day I lost him. Those words weren't spoken in public, but they've now been confirmed by at least two close friends of the prince. For William, the interview was a line crossed, one from which there could be no retreat. He felt exposed, misrepresented, and used. The portrayal of him as the cold, unfeeling future king, complicit in institutional cruelty, cut him deeper than any headline ever had. It wasn't just his public image that had been scorched. It was his personal truth. A truth he had never shared because he had chosen silence for the sack. Of the crown, for the sake of their mother's memory, and for the sake of the brother he once protected with every breath. But that silence had now been turned against him. He felt framed as the villain of a story he never agreed to be part of. Behind palace walls, the reactions were splintered. Charles, as ever, remained emotionally absent. His response, according to insiders, was more about containing the fire than confronting the pain. But it was Camilla who is said to have issued the most strategic warning. "This isn't about emotion," she reportedly told a senior courtier. "It's about optics. Keep them controlled." To William, that sentiment summed up everything that had gone wrong. While he was mourning the loss of his brother's trust, the machine around him was calculating press angles. And that realization, the cold detachment of it all, pushed him further into isolation. Yet it wasn't until a private encounter, one staged weeks later behind closed doors, that William's disillusionment took root. Because even as the storm swirled outside the palace gates, it was what happened in a private meeting weeks later that sealed William's disillusionment and possibly his heart. It wasn't recorded. No staff, no press. Just two brothers at Balmoral, one demanding honesty, the other pleading for understanding. But what happened in that shadowed room has now come to light, and it wasn't reconciliation. It was revelation. In a meeting quietly orchestrated by Princess Anne, who had grown weary of the simmering feud threatening to consume the family from within, William and Harry were brought together under the Highland mist, with the hope of salvaging what little remained of their brotherhood. But the silence between them was heavy. Words did not flow easily, and when they did, they carried the weight of everything unsaid for years. William didn't open with comfort or small tar. He opened with a demand. "Tell me what's really going on with the memoir." It wasn't a question, it was a challenge. He wasn't there for apologies, he was there for answers. because whatever remained of his patience had been incinerated by secrets Harry refused to share, even as the entire monarchy braced for impact. Harry's response was not the confession William expected, but it wasn't defiant either. He admitted to including stories in the book that would shock the institution, claiming they were necessary for transparency. But when pressed on whether those stories involved direct betrayals of family trust, Harry hesitated. He insisted he had redacted names, protected certain relationships, and softened details where it mattered most. But to William, that wasn't good enough. Protecting reputations wasn't the same as preserving truth. The room turned cold when Harry invoked Diana's name. He said their mother would have supported him, stood beside his decision to speak his truth, regardless of the cost, and in that moment, something inside William cracked. "Don't use her to justify this," he reportedly snapped. It wasn't just a brother's pain speaking, it was a future king's fury at what he saw as the weaponization of a mother's legacy. Witnesses say voices were raised. Walls at Balmoral, usually steeped in silence, absorbed the sounds of a bond unraveling. The shouting did not last long, but the silence that followed was deafening. Harry, wounded and resolute, walked out first, not with slamming doors or final words, just a hollow quiet that suggested nothing more could be salvaged. And when William returned to his study, aides found him seated alone, a single sheet of paper torn in half beside him. That paper would later be identified as a printout of Protocol Clarion, a confidential royal document outlining private understandings between the brothers during the PO. Steam exit transition. No one knew who had brought it to the meeting, but its destruction was symbolic. The agreement, once forged to preserve dignity and discretion, had been shredded both literally and emotionally. William would say nothing to the press in the days that followed, but his silence told its own story. The final olive branch had been burned. What began as a conversation to heal turned into a revelation too severe to ignore. And as Balmoral's doors closed behind them, so too did the last passage of genuine understanding between the brothers. William left that room not just disillusioned, but changed. From personal implosions to public escalations, the final straw wouldn't come in private, it would come in print, on pages that could never be erased. He promised to protect the family. He vowed not to name names. But then came the book, and in it William found not just memories but distortions, humiliations, and a chilling feeling that this wasn't just about truth. It was about revenge. The memoir, which had once been whispered about in cautious tones within palace corridors, finally landed in William's hands in the form of early draft summaries delivered by internal channels. As the future king read through the bullet-pointed sections, a suffocating silence took over the room. Staff stood motionless, unsure whether to offer a word or disappear entirely. Because as William's eyes moved across the page, what they saw wasn't catharsis, it was betrayal packaged as confession. The first sting was personal. He had expected reflections, criticisms, even anger. But what he hadn't anticipated was the level of surgical precision with which Harry laid bare their childhood disputes. Fights once forgotten, private teenage moments and intimate family dynamics were now inked into permanence, each one twisted through the lens of resentment. Aides were especially horrified at the inclusion of incidents involving Kate. What had once been emotional misunderstandings within the family had now been reframed as cold, calculated slights. William saw the impact before it even hit the shelves. One senior advisor reportedly said, "It's character assassination wrapped in royal paper," and at the center of it all stood William, cast not as a brother, but as a symbol of the monarchy Harry claimed had failed him. And yet it wasn't just the content, it was the timing. The Queen was still alive when the drafts began to circulate. Behind the scenes, she was said to be deeply troubled, not by the potential scandal, but by the disintegration of trust between her grandsons. In her final private meeting with William before her health began to visibly decline, she allegedly held his hand and said quietly, "This isn't about who's right, it's about who's left standing when it's over." Those words stayed with him, not as a warning, but as a prophecy. Because as he watched the world prepare for the book's release, William wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about survival. The quote that leaked shortly after the book's embargo lifted summed up the devastation more than any official palace statement ever could. "He's not writing history, he's rewriting loyalty." Those were William's words, shared only with a tight circle, but they quickly made their way into the media through unnamed sources. And while the world dissected every line of Harry's memoir, William made only one decision: he would never trust him again. It wasn't rage that moved him. It was something colder, something final, a resignation that the bond they once had was now broken beyond diplomacy, beyond reconciliation, beyond blood. Still, William didn't lash out. He didn't grant interviews or pen rebuttals. He remained silent, not out of weakness, but strategy. Because in that silence, something else was growing, something unseen, untouched by the media storm. But William didn't remain passive forever. And in the silence that followed, he began crafting something more powerful than retaliation, a quiet defense, prepared in secret. While Harry published his truth, William preserved his own. Locked in a secured vault beneath Windsor lies a private archive: letters, audio recordings, and sealed testimonies that could change the narrative forever. And now, the world learns it exists. Known only to a handful of senior aides and affectionately referred to inside Kensington as Vault Clarion, the collection began taking form in the aftermath of Megxit. William, emotionally bruised and strategically cautious, understood that history was being rewritten in real time and not always in favor of the truth. Rather than retaliate in public, he turned inward, assembling a private counter-narrative. Piece by piece, document by document, a record was formed, not for press, not for politics, but for legacy. At the center of this quiet operation was Catherine. While William handled the burdens of diplomacy and appearances, she worked behind the scenes with meticulous care, ensuring that handwritten notes, personal correspondences, and voice memos were catalogued and stored with discretion. Every file represented a turning point. Every folder contained the echoes of things the public had never seen. Among the most closely guarded contents were personal reflections from Charles himself, scribbled margins on briefing papers, private apologies to William for what he called avoidable fractures, and even sharp rebukes directed at Harry's choices, written in a tone far removed from the kingly detachment he maintained publicly. These notes, authenticated and time-stamped, remain sealed, but they exist, and their weight is undeniable. And then came the tapes sent posthumously by a form. Er Confidante of Princess Diana. The contents of those recordings remain a mystery even to insiders. But their arrival triggered a tightening of security around Vault Clarion. Sources say the tapes were accompanied by a handwritten letter to William, urging him to hold fast to what your mother hoped for you: clarity, compassion, and strength. What's clear is that the archive is not simply a collection of royal debris. It is a living counterweight to the stories that have shaped public perception, stories William believes have only told one side. Still, despite the pressure, he has never released them. He's refused deals, declined documentary pitches, and turned down publishers who would have paid millions to open just one drawer. Because this isn't for the public. Not yet. When asked, in private circles, why he maintains the archive at all, William is said to have answered with startling clarity, "It's for them. One day, they'll ask what happened, and I want them to know everything, not just what was said." By them, he means his children. But recently, palace whispers suggest a particular focus has been placed on Princess Charlotte. Insiders say William sees in her a quiet discernment, an ability to absorb the emotional complexity of legacy without drowning in it. Though she is still young, some now speculate she may one day be the guardian of the truth her father chose not to weaponize. A truth not shouted from rooftops, but preserved beneath stone and silence. Because in the end, William didn't choose to destroy his brother, he chose to walk away. And when he broke his silence, it wasn't a strike, it was surrender. "I loved him, I defended him, but I can't follow him anymore." With those chilling words, Prince William closes the door. There is no hatred in his voice, only heartbreak. The brotherhood is over, and the monarchy must now move without its missing prince. His were not just the words of an heir to the throne. They were the final echoes of a brotherhood torn apart by truth, ambition, and years of quiet pain. In the private confines of a royal council held days before the public statement was released, William delivered his decision with the calm of someone who had already mourned. There was no outrage, no vengeance, only resolve. The silence that followed his words lingered far longer than any debate, because in that room, everyone knew the gravity of what had just been said. Kate, seated beside him, remained composed, but her quiet strength was unmistakable. She had witnessed the unraveling from its earliest days, had stood between William and the worst of his grief more times than anyone knew. And in the end, she had helped shape the wording of his final message, not with bitterness, but with finality. Charles offered little. His response was muted, diplomatic, distant. The monarch had grown weary of the endless cracks within the House of Windsor, and perhaps, in that moment, chose to accept what he could no longer control. Anne, however, was different. Her eyes, according to sources present, never left William's face. And when the meeting adjourned, she followed him out not with questions, but with a quiet nod that spoke of solidarity. Whatever had been broken between the brothers was, in her eyes, no longer repairable. The statement itself had been edited, redrafted, and reviewed by legal teams. But one line remained untouched from William's original draft. A line aimed not at the press, not at the public, but at Harry. The preservation of truth must not come at the destruction of family. The placement was deliberate. It wasn't designed to shame, but to wound, to remind, to expose the cost of every choice that had led to this moment. It was William's final attempt at drawing a line not in defense of tradition, but in defense of peace. And buried deeper within his message was something few noticed, an appeal, not to Harry, but to those watching, reading, judging. William begged quietly but unmistakably for the next generation to be spared. Let them grow in the light, not in the shadow of this war, he pleaded. A father speaking louder than a prince. What remains unsaid is just as powerful. Behind palace walls, it is understood that any future reconciliation, if it ever comes, will not be for show. There will be no grand gestures, no joint appearances for the sake of optics. If peace is ever found again, it will happen in silence, far from cameras, and likely never fully shared with the world. Because for William, the illusion of unity has already caused enough damage. And now, as he finally steps out from behind the barricade of duty and loyalty, he leaves one door permanently closed. But while William may have let go of the brother he once knew, the storm isn't over. In fact, new whispers suggest Harry may be preparing a final counterstroke of his own. Just as the dust settles, a new tremor begins. Sources suggest Harry is preparing a shocking follow-up statement and possibly a second memoir. If so, it won't just reignite the feud. It could burn the last bridge between blood and betrayal. Whispers inside publishing circles have already grown louder, with two separate industry figures confirming that meetings were recently held between Harry's team and a prominent transatlantic agency known for handling high-profile, high-conflict narratives. This isn't just about an update, it's about escalation. According to one insider, the tone this time is unapologetic and unfiltered. A departure from the confessional style of his first memoir. The aim, it seems, is not to explain but to confront. And yet, curiously, Meghan has remained publicly silent. Not a post, not a comment, not a hint of endorsement. Whether this is a calculated move to preserve her own image, or a deeper sign of internal disagreement, no one can say for sure. But those who know the couple well say her absence in this moment is not accidental, it's strategic. The timing of Harry's rumoured second strike is no coincidence either. With 2026, fast approaching a year, anticipated to bring major structural and ceremonial shifts within the monarchy, royal advisors are already bracing for what they privately call the escalation phase. This is no longer about personal pain. This is about legacy warfare, and the battlefield is no longer limited to television screens and newspaper columns. It's digital, viral, global. And with every keystroke, the stakes rise. Inside William's camp, preparations are already underway not for a response, but for protection. His communications team has reportedly fortified their online strategy, anticipating targeted narrative waves designed to undermine his recent silence. There is no appetite for retaliation. but there is readiness for containment. Palisades have been instructed to monitor digital spaces for coordinated surges in misinformation or misquotes, a clear sign that William expects the next chapter to unfold, not through books, but through algorithms. The monarchy, for all its age, is now fighting in a war of modern narratives, and William intends to survive it not by attacking but by enduring. Meanwhile, the public mood is shifting. Polls show a dramatic divide, not just between supporters of the Sussexes and loyalists to the crown, but within generations. Younger audiences are gravitating toward Harry's version of events, while older citizens CE concern over the monarchy's slow decay. The numbers don't lie. Sympathy has become suspicion, and suspicion has become fatigue. The people are tired of the feud, but they're not looking away. They're waiting, watching, and questioning whether the crown has the strength to outlast the brothers, tearing it apart from within. As rumors intensify, all eyes now turn to King Charles. Will he finally intervene? Will he issue a public call for peace, or will he, once again, recede into the silence of neutrality? Some insiders say a private summit is being considered. Others insist the damage is beyond repair. One former advisor put it bluntly, if another book drops, this isn't just about two brothers anymore. It's about the crown itself. And so the royal family stands on the edge of a reckoning, its traditions under siege, its heirs at war, and its people caught in the crossfire. What comes next may change the monarchy forever. But for now, one thing is certain: the bond between brothers, once unbreakable, has now become the kingdom's deepest wound. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.